Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're working on a Husqvarna 350 chainsaw. Customer complaint is that he's got a fuel leak. When I roll this thing over, I see that he's got an oil leak as well. So we're going to investigate both of these situations. So on the bottom of the saw there is an inspection port, I guess. There's a filter screen type of dealio. Single screw that holds it in place. If you remove it, you can clean the, basically a strainer that's between the oil tank and the oil pump. And sometimes that strainer will leak. But in this case, it appears to be okay. Let's take a look at this oil cap. It's actually a little bit wetter on the cap right there, but it wasn't wet around the edge of the cap like on the plastic body of the saw. And I'm noticing when I crank the thing down in there, looks like there's a crack that's opening up on the cap. It's so much of a hairline crack, it's hard to tell. So we're just gonna monitor that. As I'm working on this side of the saw, the oil will be up against that cap and I'll see if it leaks. Alright, to fix our fuel leak, we can see that there's a hose not pressed onto the fuel tank right now. It's going to be the return hose that comes from the primer bulb returning the tank. And there's a fitting on the tank and the hose isn't pressed on there, and I can see by looking at the hose that it's kind of old and stretched out. Pulled off of there once, so we can't just push it back on there and expect it to stay. We get this front handguard out of the way. Take another quick look at that cap. And now we need to gain some access to where that hose attaches to the tank. I've got this pair of pliers that's I think it was some kind of exhaust clamp pliers. Some European job. I modified it just to use it as a spreader clamp. I probably should have had this cover off of here before I got to that point, but alright, there's our fuel line that's leaking, and it doesn't even really look that old. I just wonder if it's the wrong diameter, inside diameter to fit on that tank. So we've got a new piece of fuel line that I know is the correct diameter. We already know what the length is going to be. We just match it up to the other hose. And we don't need any tapers on this one because it's pushing onto a fitting on both ends. So I've taken a Q-tip and some brake cleaner, carb cleaner, and I'm cleaning off that fitting that the hose is going to push onto. And I want it perfectly clean and dry because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dab of super glue and I'm going to put it on that fitting before I push the hose on there. And that'll keep the hose on there, eh? And this isn't an uncommon practice. You don't need to get so carried away that no one's ever going to get the fuel line back off of there again. But if you use a little bit, at least in one spot on the fitting, just to hold the line on, you're alright. Or you can kind of put it all the way around the fitting and just don't use a lot. And be careful when you put it on there that you're not putting it on in a way that you're going to block the hole when you push the line on. So I can't get the hose in there. And the reason for that is, you'll see here in a minute, There's a protective sleeve right there. I gotta get that out of the way. Then I can push the line through. Kind of a tight squeeze. Let's go. This is a little bit of a tricky bend here to manipulate with your pliers or whatever tool you're using. Once you get the line pushed down the fitting, just pull the slack out of it. And then we can put this protective sleeve back over the hose. There we go. Alright, we're done in there. Now we just got to finish connecting the hose to the primer bulb. Or the purge bulb. Well, at least if you're going to have a hose that leaks, it's nice to have it be this one because it's not a preformed hose. The other hose that's running from the purge bulb is a preformed one. And the one coming out of the tank is as well. Now we get to put the handle back on. This is such a clumsy job. Someday I'm going to figure out a better way to do this. And probably the better way would be to clamp the bar in a vise so that the saw couldn't move around. But the vise is on the bench behind me, and if I did that, well, then you guys wouldn't be able to watch me struggle with this. You notice that the two screws I put in the bottom were the shorter screws that I had sitting on the bench. Don't be the guy that puts the long screws in the bottom and then comes back complaining that there's a hole in the bottom of their oil tank from a screw punching through it. Because I have seen that before. Alright, let's go back and investigate this cap. I cranked it on there pretty good, I guess. Let's see if it's actually got a crack in there or not. It keeps getting wet. If you look really close, there is a hairline crack in here. Right there. So we'll put a new cap on it. I should point out that it's not the first time I've seen that style cap crack in that spot. I'm not saying it's a common problem, but it's something to watch for if you got a mystery oil leak. Well, we had it laying on its other side and nothing has come out of our fuel return line, so I'd say we got our leaks all fixed. That's all I'm going to have for you in the Husky 350 fuel and oil leak repair. Thanks for watching. Later.